Alright, so this is the Sans Digital MobileRAID MR2UT+B, and there's also the MR2CT, which I believe the main difference there is the CT has dual FireWire 800 ports at the back, as well as eSATA and USB 3. So this one has eSATA and USB 3, and it's extremely good quality. This is probably one of the best build quality units that I've seen. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Some of the things that it comes with, comes with a power cord, sort of standard power cord. It comes with a nice eSATA cable. I checked the eSATA back when I had the Sabertooth motherboard, which had eSATAs. The Empire doesn't have any eSATAs, but it also comes with this little PCI plate that has an eSATA on it, and you plug it into the normal eSATA port. And it comes with a nice blue USB cable, which I like. I think the blue is very nice. And it's a 4 foot, looks like 4 foot. I like the blue better than black. I think it's very pretty. So it also comes with these little key things, which are just for poking this, and then that opens up the gate, and then the drives slide out. I have just an older couple of Barracuda 7200.11 drives in here, so the hard drives are on tracks like this, and you just screw them in, 2 screws each side, and like you said, it's extremely nice quality. They slide in really well. Lock into place. I cleaned it, but it does suck a lot of air through the case. A lot of air moves through the case, and that's good for airflow, of course, but it also means that there's quite a bit of dust that builds up in those front air filter areas. There's some nice steel mesh here on the front, just behind the little latches, and those do get fairly dusty. So the back has the 40mm fan, which I also just cleaned. It's got USB 3, 40mm fan. It's got eSATA, and you can see the blank spot. This is where the 2 FireWires would be. The power is a regular, sort of same as the computer takes, so you can use your own cable if you want, if you have a nice one. The fan is a little, it's 40mm, so it's a little bit loud, and it's also sucking air through an enclosed space, so you get kind of a whooshing noise, but it's really not, at first when I fired it up and I heard it, I was like, well, that's pretty loud. But once you have it, 3 or 4 or 5 feet away from you, and the fan's facing the wall away from you, and you have it running for a while, you sort of tune it out, and you get used to it, so it's not too bad. Another thing I want to note is that the first couple drives I had in there were 1 terabyte Western Digital green drives, and every time I would feel the back fan here when it's running, I would not hear any major noise, or sorry, I would not feel warm. So I was like, well, this fan is doesn't need to be running this fast and this loudly because the thing runs so cool. And it's not really automatically speed controlled, so it just runs at a fixed speed the whole time. But then when I put the normal non-green Seagate Barracuda drives in that I have now, I noticed, oh, and also with the green drives, the only time I noticed noise was when you can hear there's a kind of a grinding noise. The thing tends to grind when it's been cold, like when you have it off for 15-20 minutes or more, it sort of gets cold, and when it's cold, the fan grinds. You see, it only grinds for a few seconds this time, but sometimes it grinds for up to a whole minute, and then it smooths itself out. So sorry, what I was saying was, with the green drives, when it was just running normally and not doing reads or writes, I would put my hand by the fan and it would feel just like cool air was coming out. And then the only time it would get warm is if I did big long reads or writes from it. So big long transfers, like hundreds of gigs. But when I put the Seagate 7200 RPM regular drives in there, I feel warm air coming out of it constantly. So even when it's sitting there doing nothing, it's always warm air. And when you feel the top, it's warm. So I was very surprised. Obviously the green drives are going to run cooler, but there was never any warm air coming out hardly ever when the green drives were in there. As far as speeds go, these are not fancy drives or anything. They're from a couple years ago, or probably more than that. I think they're from 2009, end of 2009 or beginning of 2010. So they're not fancy drives. They are only 120 gigabytes per second reads and writes, I think. And so they using USB 3, and also I checked eSATA back when I had the Sabertooth drive, and USB 3, the speeds were the same as internals, CLITA. So no problems with speeds. And so I'm just gonna, I have them. I would show you the box, but I don't have it. But I do have the manual, and so there that is. I'll just read through it really quick. Power cord, H3 tray keys, removable tray modules. That's like a little bar that, because the trays are open at the one end, so when you get them, they have a little bar in them just to keep them from bending together. eSATA cable, USB 3 cable, FireWire 800 cable, which is for the CT only. So you get the screws and all that stuff, and that's good. So this just shows you how to install the drives. You screw them in and slide them in. Also, one small difference between the UT model and the CT model, both of them have this button on it which says mute, but the CT has, instead of a link, it has a button that says temp, and there's a temperature monitor that will give you an alarm once it reaches a certain temperature. I think it's like 70 degrees or something. And so this mute button is to mute that alarm. So with this one, as far as I know, it doesn't do anything. And it just links, it gives you a indication when it's connected to the computer. So you get modes that you get. You can do RAID 0 with 2 terabytes or less, RAID 1 with 2 terabytes or less, SPAN with 2 terabytes or less. So that's just taking 2 hard drives and making one allocation, making one partition out of those. And you can do just a bunch of disks, JBOD, 2 terabytes or less, and you can do all of those with 2 terabytes or more. So that's what that little dial around the front is for. So it is hardware RAID. I think this is like $125, at NCIX, which is where I got it from, and that's fairly expensive for an enclosure. But it is not just a it's just not just a dumb enclosure. It has a hardware RAID card up in the top. So for me, for my personal use, I just keep it running 24/7, and so it never does cool down, and so the fan never does that grinding noise. But once it does get cold, it does grind for a while, the fan, when it's starting up. So that's one negative point. It seems like the fan's a little bit cheap, a little bit bad quality, because it's not that old and it's already having trouble with the fan. NCX, they still have it $124, so that's expensive for a regular enclosure, but like I said, it is a hardware RAID, so your actual computer is not going to be doing the RAID. It's RAID on board, and performance for RAID has been solid. I mean, I've never had a connection drop. I've never had a write failure. I've always had consistent speed, and like I said, I've left it on 24/7 for about 8 or 10 months, and I use it every day. I've got all my images on it, and some other stuff too, and I have it in a mirrored RAID because for the images, for redundancy. So, the thing performs very solidly. So as far as that's concerned, I can't complain. I mean, it's rock solid, and like I said, the build quality, I'm going to include some photos, look in the description. I have photos of this with the whole cover taken off, and photos of the drives being installed, and photos of all the stuff. You can take it apart. The only problem is, though, that the screws are under these feet, which are just attached with double-sided sticky tape sort of thing. So, if you want to be taking it apart, you've got to remove those feet with the stickers. So if you want to do that one time, I've actually done it twice, and I've stuck them back on. It's been okay, but you don't want to be opening it up and closing it a whole bunch of times, or the feet are going to lose their stick, and then you can just get some thin double-sided tape and do it yourself, like I have here actually, the thin type of double-sided tape. So you could stick them back on, but it's not like I would have preferred. I guess they do it for looks, so that you don't see the screws. But I wish they would have just put these feet, off to the side a little bit and left the screws so you could undo it yourself. And in order to try to make this quieter, I did experiment with running it without the fan connected. And to be honest, like I said, it definitely is not an option for the Seagate full speed drives, because it's just very hot even at no speeds. But running with fans is definitely not an option for hotter drives. But I think that running without a fan with green drives may work. But you're going to be running the drives hot, and that might reduce the lifespan of them. So, like I said, I got used to the fan noise, and I would definitely just run it with the fan now. But I did experiment with that, and I also ran it, with no cover on for a bit, but then it was going to get dusty and dirty on the RAID controller, so I wouldn't recommend that either. But as far as, I had to look at other enclosures, and I saw some, Vantech stuff, and, stuff from various companies, and all of them look very, very casual, kind of, silly designs and stuff like that. The type of stuff, they remind me of computer cases where a lot of them had sort of, aggressive designs or whatever. And then this one had a, very serious design, and so it reminds me of something along the lines of like a Super Micro case versus sort of retail cases for gaming type of thing. So looks wise, this is rock solid in my opinion, because it's very simple and very plain, and I like that. And yeah, these rubber feet are great. They're big chunks of rubber, and it's rock solid. Even though I've had them off and on a couple times now. The feet are still rock solid, so no issues there. And there's no vibrating or any of that sort of thing. Once the fan does get spinning, it's fine. And the whole unit, it isolates itself pretty well, and you don't get any vibrating. So it's rock solid. I mean, aside from the one fan thing, I recommend it highly. It's really good. It's really solid. It's very, very good quality. So it's been perfect for everything I've used it for. I've had two Seagate 7200 RPM .11 1 terabyte drives in RAID 1, so a mirrored RAID, for a few months, and then before that I had two Western Digital green drives, 1 terabyte in a mirrored RAID, and I've also tried like single drive and dual drive in just a bunch of disks, JBOD, and I've also tried spanning, which works good, and I haven't tried RAID 0, but I'm sure it works fine because mirrored RAID works fine. So, and I've also tried taking the drive out and just dumping it into the hot swap bay on the case and reading from it, and that works fine. So everything works as it should. So no problems. So this is the Sans Digital MobileRAID MR2UT and CT, and I would highly recommend it. I think it's one of the best built units I've seen in an extremely long time. So have a look in the description for a bunch of photos of this unit, and there is a video that shows the inside of the unit when I was thinking about experimenting with running without a fan, and so I'll link to that. You can have a look at the inside of the unit and see what the RAID controller looks like, and there's photographs of the inside and the RAID controller as well, and the PCB and the inside of the fan and all that stuff. So I would highly recommend this. I'd say it was excellent, and that's all I have to say about it for now. So goodbye, and I will have more videos shortly. And I get the same thing this time, you see. So this is what the fan sounds like when you turn it on after it's been off for a while. And then eventually it sort of smooths itself out. So it sounds like the fan's dying. So that's a little bit disappointing. The build quality of this thing is phenomenal. This is some of the best build quality. Now you hear it sort of smoothing out. The build quality here on the actual physical unit itself is some of the best build quality I've ever seen in anything. So the little fan grinding noise when you start it up is kind of a disappointing downside, at least to this specific unit. So a little bit disappointed in that. But as you can hear, it's sort of smoothed itself out now after a couple minutes. So this is the MobileRAID running with the fan disconnected. And so there is noise, but that's just the two different drives sort of spinning and running. And I don't have the top on yet because I'm worried about sort of this stuff here maybe heating up. So I might actually run it just with the top off, or I might just put the top back on, connect the fan back up again, and then just stick it down on the bottom shelf of my shelf that the computer's on, and you can't hear it too much down there. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing with it yet, but I thought I would just give you a look. This is the MobileRAID
MR2UT, and this is the internal sort of top section, the controller, RAID controller part of it.